welcome back to Down East Far East Kitchen. Today we're going to be working on some Thanksgiving leftovers, and to do that in our typical Down East Far East twist, we're going to be looking at how we can use some Thanksgiving leftovers in some Far East Asian food. So we're going to make some bao. And so in this bowl here of our mixer, I've got some warm water, sugar, and the yeast, and it's already bloomed. So it's all nice and frothy and the yeast is nice and active. And then I've got some flour with some baking soda, and we're just gonna mix this together. It's gonna go into the mixer and start kneading, but we've also got some leftover sweet potatoes from our Thanksgiving meal. So we're gonna add some of this to the dough, give it a little bit of color, a little bit of flavor. So this is gonna go into the mixer. We're gonna mix this and let it knead with the dough hook for about 7-8 minutes. And then at that stage, we'll add in a small pat of butter, about 2.5 teaspoons of butter, and then continue to knead until that butter's fully incorporated. Then from there, we'll be able to use that dough to make the bao. The reason we put the butter in later is because you don't want the butter there yet, because it'll coat the flour, and then that reduces your gluten formation. So for now, we immediately mix it without that oil or without that butter. And if you are making bao and you're trying to replace the butter with other things, if you use oil, you'll end up yellowing the dough, although because we've got this in there, it may not matter. But if you're looking for a pristinely white one, I wouldn't use oil. So I'm gonna put this in the mixer and let it get going. Okay, so this has been kneading now for about a total of 10 minutes. At about the 7 to 8 minute mark, we added about 2.5 teaspoons of butter. You can see the dough's got a nice orange tinge from the sweet potato. And before we start to use this, I'm gonna just do a quick rolling and folding process. I've got a teeny bit of bench flour here. We don't need a ton, but I just wanna kind of help make sure this doesn't stick too much. So really just kind of roll this out into a rough rectangle. Doesn't need to be very precise, but just kind of work the dough, and then I'm gonna fold it over once. A little more of this flour. And then I'll do that one more time. Here, I'm going to just kind of jelly roll this up so that we've got a nice big long roll. And then we're going to try and portion it from here. So let me roll this a little bit, thin this side out because it's a little thicker. So this recipe of dough, typically I would make about 10 to 12 regular size bao, but we're doing leftover bao that we've decided are going to be kind of, the bao is almost your whole meal. So we're gonna make big bao today. And so we're gonna try and do more like, say about 5. So I'm just gonna kind of rough estimate here, 5 portions of dough. There we go. And then for each of these, we'll make one bao. And so you'll wanna just kind of lay it onto the cut side, pat it down. And then before you start rolling your bao, what you want, or folding your bao, you want to kind of roll it out a bit to thin it out. And like you're doing dumplings, you only need to roll part way in because you want to make sure that you keep it thick in the middle, thin on the edges, because as you start to fold it, the edges will start doubling over and that'll thicken up. But the middle you want thick so that you have a base underneath all of your filling and it doesn't burst out at the bottom. So we'll just kind of go around the edges. You see I'm not rolling across the whole circle, and then we just keep rotating the dough. And this is a really big bao. There we go. So you can kind of see on this one here in the middle, it's got this big thick piece and the edges are thin, but this is plenty big for us to be able, and it's nice and stretchy. And we'll be able to fill this up with some Thanksgiving leftovers. All right, so we're gonna finish up rolling all our bao and then we're gonna stuff them. Okay, so we've rolled out all the dough. And again, thick in the middle, thin the edges. You can see we've got some stuffing, some turkey, some cranberry, and some leftover sweet potatoes. And using up our Thanksgiving leftovers, we're gonna make a big giant bao. So I'm gonna layer this stuff in. I'm gonna start with the stuffing. There isn't really any rhyme or reason to this order, but I kind of like the stuffing on the bottom. And let's add in some chicken, or turkey, sorry. Let's add in some turkey. And this is a big piece of dough, so I'm gonna be pretty generous with this. So this is a meal-sized bao. And then let's go with some of the sweet potato. Layer that, and then I'm gonna finish with some cranberries right over the top. And then it's just a matter of trying to fold this thing up. So I'm gonna stretch out these little edges and then try and work on crimping my way around and try and keep all my filling on the inside. Here we go. Oh, it spilled a little bit. Pretty close though, there we go. There's our big giant bao. We're gonna fill up all 5 of these. Once you got them filled up, you wanna kind of pinch that close, then we're gonna wanna let them just sit covered for about 45 minutes to an hour to let them proof, because this is a yeasted dough. And then you're gonna steam them for probably about 8 to 10 minutes. So the insides, of course, are already cooked. You just wanna heat them through, but you wanna steam the bread portion, right? So there's our big bao. This is a really big bao. And we'll make some more. Okay, so these have been steaming, since these are such big bao, we've let them go a little bit longer, probably closer to 12 minutes. And we're gonna check them out. Now, there are some who will recommend that you always turn off the heat and let them sit for another 10 minutes or they might collapse. You can do that if it makes you feel better. We're gonna just open up the lid and go for it. I have not had any of my bao collapse, so here's knocking on some bamboo here and hoping that we haven't just jinxed ourselves. So let's take a look and see how these look. Ooh, look at that. That is one big giant bao. So you can see here's the size of my hand. So these are dinner sized bao. So when we're talking leftovers, this is 1 bao per person and that's your dinner. We're probably gonna have a little bit of juk with this as well, but they're looking pretty good to me. And we'll let them kind of cool off before we start trying to handle them.
Won't you come into my kitchen and I will feed you fine. I said come into my kitchen, come into my kitchen. Come on down to my kitchen, come on down to my kitchen. Won't you come into my kitchen, come into my kitchen. Come on down to my kitchen, come on down to my kitchen. Won't you come into my kitchen and I will